MacArthur Park is scheduled to be cleared for renovation work to be done there, similar to what was done at Echo Park a number of weeks ago. And the clearing of people living in the park at Echo Park created a big conflict. Protesters took to the street trying to assure that people could continue to live in the park and that the park would not be closed. They failed in that effort. The park was closed for a number of weeks and then has since reopened to the public. So we're going to focus on what's happening at MacArthur Park to try and avoid the conflict that occurred at Echo Park Lake. Joining us, KPCC and LAist reporter Ethan Ward, who covers unhoused Angelenos. Ethan, so good to have you with us again.
I'm happy to be here, Larry, to talk with you.
Let's talk first about Echo Park. And I understand you've been there recently. Are there any people who've pitched tents and are living in the park currently?
Well, yeah, I went to MacArthur Park this morning, and MacArthur Park, I counted maybe like 13 tents, but it's actually been reduced a lot. I've been there a couple of times in the last couple of weeks, and every time I go, there's less tents in the park. Unhoused people that I've spoken with in the park say that they have noticed that people have been getting housing. Their friends are coming back and telling them they've been placed into housing. And so it looks to be a lot different than Echo Park already.
Okay. Now, you were at Echo Park, though, right? Also over the weekend? Or not?
No, I was not.
You
at
weren't.
Echo Park, no.
Okay. All right. Okay. So let's talk about MacArthur Park and what's happening there. What are the things that are being done in advance of clearing MacArthur Park that appears were not done, at least to this extent, at Echo Park?
Well, a lot of unhoused people tell me that they have been getting notices. I spoke to a woman this morning who told me that police have been going around handing out the notices pretty much every day. I've also noticed that there were representatives from PATH there who also tell me that they've had a lot of time to plan for this, unlike Echo Park. They've been able to do more connections with people. And like I said, there are visibly less tents at the park. I even spoke to some police officers who patrol the park who also said that they feel that this is a lot different than Echo Park. I bluntly asked them, were they planning on showing up in riot gear on Friday? And they said no, that was in response to activists. They said that they don't foresee that being something that they have to do this time, since people do seem eager to get placed into shelter.
And are these organizations coming up with shelter for people to move out of the park and into?
Yeah, I think a lot of the unhoused people I've spoken with, they say that LASA and PATH, they've been out to do outreach. One of the women that I spoke with this morning, she didn't know where she was going to go on Friday. And then someone from PATH walked up as we were talking, and come to find out she's actually moving into a project room key tomorrow. So people do want to get into shelter. And I think for the most part, people are receptive to that, but people from PATH did tell me that, you know, if there's any resistance to going into housing, obviously there's nothing that they can do about the people who just refuse to want to come indoors.
And the deadline for people to leave and remove their possessions is this coming Friday night? Is that
Friday
the deadline?
Friday at 10:30 p.m. That's when the park closes, and that's when everyone will be expected to be out of the park.
And Ethan, do you know what the renovation plan is generally for the park?
Well, I think they're doing a lot of maintenance in the park. It was a lot of deferred maintenance that Cedillo's office was talking about that has been going for 19 months because of the pandemic. So they're saying that they're going to do electrical repairs to underground vaults. They're going to do lighting repairs and upgrades. They're going to be landscaping, reseeding the grass and doing some painting. I believe they also mentioned something about signage replacements and irrigation repairs as well.
And it's the southern area of the park, as I understand, that where this would happen. But so is there a planned closure, do you know, for the northern part of the park?
Yeah, that's a good question. I spoke to unhoused people who were on the northern side of the park. There is no planned closure for that. And even police are telling me that they don't have a plan. They haven't been told how they're going to address the northern side of the park. Cedillo's office tells me that that side of the park will remain open for recreational activities. I'm not really sure for the people who are living in tents what is going to happen with them, or if there will be any kind of outreach on that side of the park yet. I think the focus right now is just on the lakeside portion of the park.
I guess I was wondering if we're going to see a number of people who've been living on the lakeside portion just move over to the northern portion where there's not an eviction order.
Yeah, that was my biggest concern as well. But from what I gather from being there, people actually are taking Lhasa and Path up on offers of shelter, and want to be connected with that. There are people who are on the north side of the park. I'm just not really sure if outreach has been done specifically for that side. I think the outreach efforts are focused solely on the lakeside portion of the park.
We're talking with KPCC and LAist Unhoused Communities reporter Ethan Ward. Also with us from the aforementioned group PATH, People Assisting the Homeless, Executive Director Jennifer Hark Dietz. PATH is a statewide homeless housing and services agency. Jennifer, thank you for being with us again. We appreciate it very much. Please elaborate on what outreach is being done with residents of the southern part of the park.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. We actually started outreach back in January in partnership with LASA and Councilmember Cedillo's office. So we had kind of a good assessment of, who was experiencing homelessness and what resources were needed. So we have been more intensely doing outreach for the past few weeks, and we've been able to actually offer everyone a Project Room Key site to go to. So, I think having the housing resources paired with outreach has been really successful, as Ethan has just said. And we know that works, right? We know when you have a really viable solution that people do want to get the help that they need in order to move towards, hopefully permanent housing in the near future.
And is it Project Room Key that seems to be satisfactory for people with encampments relocating as opposed to shelter? Are shelter beds just not desirable enough to get people to relocate?
I think what we found with Project Room Key was, people can live with dignity. They can close the doors just like any of us would want to. And so, of course, it's more desirable to go where you can live more independently. And a shelter environment creates, while we definitely need shelter beds as well, it creates a different scenario. You're living with folks you don't know. And, that can definitely be a barrier. So I think Project Room Key has opened all of our eyes really to what the benefits can be towards, leasing or master leasing motels so that we can get folks off the street and into, their own unit.
Are there enough units available that you could take this beyond just a park that's being shut down for renovation and to make this offer to encampments all over the region? Or is there just not enough capacity?
I think that's a great question. There's definitely not enough capacity for every individual experiencing homelessness throughout the region. As we know, there's thousands and thousands of people. But if we continue to offer these interim solutions like Project Room Key while also adding permanent housing in the pipeline, those two together are what's going to help us end this crisis.
I'm assuming, though, permanent housing is so far down the road, given the numbers, it's, more immediate issue is coming up with, a safe bed for people to sleep in. So how many Project Room Key beds, to your knowledge, are available that people could use who are living in encampments now?
We're kind of just tracking for this encampment, so making sure that we get everyone from MacArthur Park into a Project Room Key site. So I couldn't speak to what's available countywide, but I do know that for MacArthur Park, there is a Project Room Key unit available for everyone that was identified.
We're talking with Jennifer Hark Dietz, who is Executive Director of PATH, People Assisting Those who are in Homelessness, statewide homeless housing and services agency. Also with us from LASA, the LA Services Agency for those who are unhoused. She is the manager for Unsheltered Strategies and is leading MacArthur Park outreach efforts for LASA. Colleen Murphy, very good to have you with us. We appreciate it. Do you know anything about the available number of room key beds that could be offered to people beyond the area of MacArthur Park being closed?
Thank you for having us, Larry. On any given day, we actually keep most of our Project Room Key beds filled. I know that from September 27th of this year, we had actually served over 9,000 distinct individuals across 45 Project Room Key facilities. And so on any given day, if if the beds aren't being held for a specific operation like this, most beds are filled. Speaking to Jennifer's the piece around this is a very highly desirable intervention. People want to come indoors. They want to be safe. They want to have dignity. And I think our high occupancy rates of Project Room Key really speak to that.
For those who don't vacate the park by Friday, what's your understanding of what happens to them?
I think that people want to get indoors, and we'll continue to intensively work with those who remain in the park. You know, since the 27th of September, we've actually brought in 81 people from that portion of the park into Project Room Key. And so things, you know, are going really well, and I think we'll continue to work intensively. And anyone who remains, we're going to continue to work and find something that works for them because we want to see them come indoors and be safe.
And to your knowledge, is there anything on average different in the population of people living in MacArthur Park versus those that were living in Echo Park?
Every area and every encampment kind of has its own DNA, and this work is really leveraging the outreach infrastructure that we've been building with really great groups like PATH and our own agency and other entities to do proactive outreach and to serve those encampments. And so, you know, part of the beauty of this work is we know the encampments, we know the people, we've already been working there proactively, and so that allows us to really tailor interventions that really work for the people in that park, whether there are language barriers, whether there are, you know, people who have more complex health needs, maybe there is a larger size. So all of that intervention is really geared toward those who are there, and we already have really good rapport built in pretty much every encampment throughout Los Angeles County.
I was wondering because in recent years, MacArthur Park is, you know, we understand had a significant problem with drugs and with drug dealing, and so I was wondering if it might be that that there was a higher percentage of people living in MacArthur Park who were struggling with addiction versus those in Echo Park, and if that would then call for a different provision of resources to help them.
Yeah, I think we know from our last homeless count that 1 in 3 people who are experiencing homelessness suffer from substance use disorder, mental health needs. And so that is something that is something we see in all encampments, and we may see more or less. But ultimately, we do believe in what's called housing first, which is getting people indoors, because it's really hard to address any of your challenges without a roof over your head. It's hard when you haven't slept all night because you're worried about your own safety. And so giving people that dignity and a space really can allow you to start healing and then bringing in those resources like we need. But we do have substance use disorder professionals on many of our teams that we can tap into, as well as medical, as well as peer support. And so our work really is designed for the myriad of needs that people have when they're experiencing homelessness on the streets.
Bobby in Koreatown asks, are Project Room Key units available for undocumented, unhoused people?
What's great about this resource and many of the resources in LA County is it's really designed for people who are experiencing unsheltered homelessness or literal homelessness per the HUD guidelines, and does not matter what documentation status is. It just, as long as you're on the streets, we're here to support you.
All right. I want to thank you so much for joining us and talking about your outreach efforts in MacArthur Park to provide housing for those residents of the park who are going to be moved out with a deadline of this coming Friday night at 10:30 at MacArthur Park. My thanks to Colleen Murphy of LASA, Jennifer Hark-Dietz of PATH, and our own Ethan Ward, KPCC and LAist reporter who covers unhoused Angelenos. You're listening to Where Talk on KPCC.